Is everybody in? Is everybody in? The show is about to begin.
Welcome to the podcast, concerts that made us, interviews and stories, tales from the bus. We love taking you back to when it all went down, the greatest live shows and the cheering crowd sound. It's concerts that made us, concertsthatmadeus.com.
Chris, you're very welcome to Concerts That Made Us.
Thanks for having me.
How are you doing this evening?
I'm doing fine. How are you?
I'm not too bad. So we're here to talk about Panic Boom, but before we get to that, I'd like to hear a bit about your own history. Do you remember your first musical memory?
Yes. I was dancing up and down on a bed, probably age 2 or 3, I'm told, with my aunts, my godmother, singing Beatles songs, to be specific, All My Lovin'. It's the earliest one I got.
You had some pretty great taste then as a kid.
Yeah, and it stuck with me too. So they've remained my favorites.
Really?
Oh yeah.
You obviously have checked out the Get Back documentary then, have you?
I have, and it was interesting in the aspect from a fan and also as a guy in a band, because it's very much, if you watch it and you're a guy in a band, you recognize a whole lot of that behavior. From the songwriting process to just the dynamics. It was fascinating to watch and just realize, that's a band. It's like a family. It's like a company. There's just a certain dynamic to the personalities that are always the same. But then the songwriting end of it was interesting because you're sitting there watching the songwriting, and that's how that goes too. It's just this excruciating process.
Yeah.
So, but you're sitting there going, you want to yell, Paul, it's Let It Be. Here's how the words go. Just come on. I know you got it, but he doesn't know it yet. He's still figuring it out, but I know
it. Yeah. There was elements in it for me where I was watching it and I was like, obviously the Beatles are on such a high pedestal nowadays. It was like, oh my God, they're actually people. They're just like me. I thought it was great for that aspect of it.
Totally agree. I mean, they have good days and they have bad days. There were some things about it that, because I saw the original Let It Be, and it was just so dreary. I mean, it's Britain in January, so it's going to be dreary.
Yeah.
But it just felt so just bad.
Yeah.
But there was an element in the Peter Jackson one where and clearly they had this from the beginning, but they didn't do anything about it. When they had mic'd up the flower pot in the commissary, and they caught the meeting between John and Paul, that was worth the price of admission for me. Just see, that's how they worked. That's how they were. That's who they were. That was their dynamic. That was a big conflict, and the way they handled it was perfect. I mean, it was kind of sneaky, but boy, was that cool.
It was priceless for a Beatles fan.
Absolutely.
So, what age were you when you first kind of thought to yourself, I want to pick up an instrument, I want to be a musician?
That was 4th grade.
Right.
I was at Our Lady of Grace Catholic School in Greensboro, North Carolina. They were offering guitar lessons. And I'm the oldest in a family of 5, which is small for an Irish Catholic family. But, I learned early on, you just don't ask for things. Just, you've got 4 others to think about, just shut up. So I don't know what gave me the courage to say, hey, I want to take guitar lessons. And then the success when my parents said, okay. And so I got one. And I started taking lessons and immediately hated it because I was just learning really boring songs.
Yeah. I can imagine.
It's 4th grade. So that's 1971. So you figured I could have been at least learning Alice Cooper or something, or Beatles for that matter.
That would have been cool.
Yeah. So I kind of put it away for a couple of years, and then the bridge on the guitar broke. And for my 13th birthday, I got a little bit of money, and I went down to the local music store and say, "Hey, can you repair this for me? How much would it be?" And I'm thinking, it's going to be astronomical. He's like, I think like $15, and I think I had 20. I was like, woo, done.
Happy days.
So I handed it over to him. He fixes it, and on the way out, I grab a Beatles songbook because the weekend before they had been playing Hard Day's Night like on a constant loop. I guess they had just gotten the rights for it in this Cleveland, Ohio radio station or television station. So they're playing Hard Day's Night, and I saw the Beatles playing, like, because at that point, I'd never seen them. I'd only heard them.
Yeah.
So I'm watching them. I'm getting their personalities, and I just enjoyed who they were. And it's like, this looks like fun. No one told me about this part of it, And the Screaming Girls was fun too, but I was just like, they're having a great time.
Yeah.
Let's try this again. So that's what really got it started. And then from there it was just took off.
Yeah. So you were did you try to form a band in school, or was that something that came later?
Oh no, as soon as I could. I had 3 friends of mine, and it's funny, as soon as you mention music, it's funny to see who kind of comes out of the woodwork. I had a friend of mine that I had no idea played drums, bass, and guitar, and at age 14 and 15 was making gospel records with his family.
Right.
No idea. So guess what? We recruited him.
Yeah.
And then another friend of mine, we had made the money to make the guitars by shoveling driveways after a winter blizzard in 1978. That would have been or 77. And so he and I were like, let's form a band. And so we got this guy, and he pulled all of us, up to speed really quickly because we were far behind him. Yeah. And that was my very first band. And then I went to a boarding school in New Jersey for 3 years, and I formed one there. And that was my first real band. And we played a gig. That was okay. We learned material, we put it together, we played the gig. So that was about age 17, I think.
Not too bad. It must have been was it a disadvantage or an advantage to be forming a band at boarding school?
I said, I never thought of that. That's a good question. In my case, a bit of a disadvantage, because what I like to listen to is not what they like to listen to. But when we played the gig, they were starved for entertainment, so we went over great.
Yeah. I
mean, literally, we were playing stuff off of Def Leppard's first record, and we were playing Rush and Scorpions, and of course, you had to play Hendrix. We played played Scorpions, Coast to Coast. But yeah, we played a whole bunch of stuff that was clearly hard rock. And what they liked was Pink Floyd, Grateful Dead, Bruce Springsteen, Elvis Costello. Kind of not what we had in the set list. But like I said, it went over really well.
Good. You did you have to seek approval from teachers? Did they have a say in what sort of music you couldn't play?
No, none of that. But we would get told to turn it down because we were allowed to practice in one of the math building in the basement. So I think, and my father, I think, did this too. They were okay with it because they could hear us, so they knew where we were. Right? We weren't out causing trouble.
True. So that's a good way to look at it.
They knew where McLernon was. He was practicing, and you could hear him, and I'd go find him. So at least you had 4 of us you could do that with.
Yeah.
So they were pretty cool about it. And then at that gig, one of the teachers got up and sang a song with us.
Jeez. So you remember which song?
Yeah, he rewrote the lyrics of Johnny Be Good to fit the students at the school. Yeah.
Now, he sounds like a teacher I'd like to have had.
Yeah, he's an interesting dude, no doubt. Whitney Athoy is his name. Azoy. Yeah. Interesting guy.
Yeah. So you obviously finished boarding school, finished your school days. What steps did you take then?
Well, from there I went to college in Madison, Wisconsin, and played in bands all the way through college and taught guitar. So I taught guitar instead of having, quote, a real job, and saved all the money so I could move out to Los Angeles and make it in the last great exodus for stardom in that would have been June of 1985.
So that would have been the days of Motley Crue and guys like that around the scene, would it?
So when I got there, yes. When I got there, Poison was still a club band. Guns N' Roses was still a club band. Jane's Addiction was still a club band. Warrant, Racer X, if you've heard of them. Paul Gilbert came out of there. Trying to think who else. Faster Pussycat, LA Guns. All these bands. I walked into that was the era. That was the competition.
Yeah.
And I remember just thinking to myself, oh boy, you know, I'm in for an interesting challenge.
Yeah, that must have been a wild time as well. I'm sure you got to hang out with them guys when you were playing, in bands alongside them. Yeah. I bet you have some crazy stories about after the gigs.
Yeah, oh my God, yeah, you ain't kidding. But what was interesting, like if all the ones who had good songs were the ones who got it. So I remember seeing Warrant, and they had this place. It was this place called the Country Club in Reseda, and they had everyone singing "Along to Heaven." I mean, well before they got signed, whole crowd. Guns N' Roses. We were all thinking, how are they going to live? They're just street urchins. Are they going to live through their first year of having a record deal?
Yeah,
they clearly had something more than, in my opinion, everybody else at that time. They had their vibe, whatever Guns N' Roses was or is, but they had these songs. You walked out of there going, that was a really cool song.
Yeah.
I mean, Poison, that same club I mentioned out at Reseda, they sold that out 7 nights in a row at one point.
Oh, man.
And I'm thinking to myself, this is all unsigned.
Jeez.
So that was about 8,000 seats total. So that's a good sized auditorium.
Yeah.
Right? Well, you think these guys are going to do something? Yeah, I think probably they will.
Yeah, more than likely.
But when we got there, to walk up and down Sunset Boulevard and just, because in Madison, Wisconsin, I was unique. And those are the days when you could tell someone who's in a band. They looked like it. Whereas now you can't really tell. So I get to Los Angeles and I look around, I was like, everybody looks like me and I look like everybody. I'm doomed. But it worked.
Yeah. From that point of view, then, what did you do to stand out from the crowd?
I hate to sound boring, but I had no bad habits. Never did. When I went on an audition, I learned the tunes. I looked the part. My gear worked. Right, my car worked, so I could get there. And I could sing. So that's what it was. That combination, because there were guys out there who could smoke me on 2 or 3 things. Let's say it was the look and playing, but they'd show up. And they'd show up with their girlfriend in a rotten car and start fighting in the ante room. Right? You're just going, okay, I'm just going to sit back and I'm not going to worry. And then once you get into that auditioning circle, my first real one was for Lita Ford, and I didn't get the gig. But what was interesting about it was I got a call a couple of weeks later from another band saying, "Hey, we talked to David Ezrin, who was the keyboard player for Lita at the time, and he said, you auditioned and you weren't right for them, but you might be right for us." So we kind of started bouncing around in this audition circle and getting to know everybody. And that's how it's like breaking out of, getting past that ceiling. It's a plateau. Yeah. And it seemingly took forever, but it's funny. You look back and it only took 2 years. God, it felt like a long time.
I could imagine. Yeah. It must have been amazing though, once you reach that stage and you're like, yes, it's really starting to pay off, all my hard work.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Because I had moved out there, like I said, across the country. I didn't know anybody. So I just packed up anything I had, I had a van, put it in the van and went to LA. And I had my American Express traveler's checks. I got an apartment in Hollywood and said, all right, here we go. And you talk about taking all your money and just going, all right, I'm putting it on the table and I'm betting on me. Here we go.
I hate to ask though, but what was plan B? Did it ever enter your mind what you'd do if it didn't work?
No, I was like Cortese. I burned my ships. Yeah. I was like, because I come from like I said, I was the oldest, but everyone in my family is either a doctor or a businessman or something like that. My mother was a nurse. My father was a big time executive, and nobody else in the family was an artist except the generation before. My aunt was an artist, and there's a guy who was in the Wizard of Oz named Ray Bolger who played the Scarecrow, and he's a family member on my paternal grandmother's side. She was a Bolger. So it skipped one. So I'm the one who was the artist. So I knew I wasn't going to go back. What was I going to do? Go back home and like be a doctor? It wasn't me. So I just was like, I'm staying here until I do it. And I did.
Yeah. Yeah. I suppose with a career like that, it's the only outlook you can really have. You know, I feel like if you set up a plan B subconsciously, you're like, okay, well, if it does, I have this. But if you don't have a plan B, you're more focused on, I've got nothing else. This has to work. You know?
Totally agree.
Yeah. Yeah.
Totally agree. And that's how I approached it. It was like everything I did was, you know, and I mean, trying to be smart about it. Again, didn't want to be mercenary because there were guys who did that too, just band jumpers. So if I joined and I'm in. You know, I'm not looking for the next band. I would go and disbanded or just someone acted silly or whatever, and I was out of there. But there was no plan B. Nothing.
Yeah. No, you're right too. And the whole jumping from band to band, like, you're right. You would get kind of a name for doing that. You'd want to be the type of person that gives it your all. And, you know, like, this is my band. It's this or nothing, you know?
Yep. Totally agree. I had a friend of mine who loves to tease me. He goes, at one point we were out there and he was visiting. He's from Chicago and he showed up and he said, all right, so this is the band that's going to make it. That was my attitude. Everyone, no, it's going to be this one. It's going to be this one. And I was talking to my daughter about it, who's doing singer-songwriting stuff. And she said, no, I'm so discouraged. It's so hard. I said, Delaney, I was in 37 bands before I finally got signed. Keep at it. Just keep at it. Trust me on it. Just keep at it.
Yeah. Determination is key.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. At what stage did the Kiss band come?
That came up. It's funny. The two guys just had their birthdays the other day, Jamie St. James and Mark Ferrari. And we used to play every January. They would have, you know, a birthday party. All the musicians would get together. So you had guys in Black and Blue and Cold Sweat and Rhino Bucket and all these guys that all get together and just have a fun party. And there'd always be a communal instrument set up.
Yeah.
So everyone would get out and play a song. You know, they play a Montrose song or a Beatles song or a Cheap Trick song or whatever. So, but there was four of us that would always get up and we'd only play Kiss songs. And we were dead on. I mean, if you turned your back, you thought you were listening to them. And it was a huge hit. Everyone loved it. So Tommy Thayer and I were sitting one night in this club called the FM Station out in the back of the gallery. We're like, you know, why don't we try this? Just for the heck of it. Let's just go out and play. Kiss t-shirts, you know, jeans, just play, see what happens. And we drew a crowd. And then we did it again and drew a bigger crowd. And then finally, Jamie, who's just this type of personality, says, you know what? Let's put on the makeup. And I was like, Saint, we don't have the costume or anything. I don't care. Let's do it. He's like, we're either going to be the heroes or going to be goats, and I'm not going to be a goat. And he was right. We were heroes. People went crazy. So that became, well, let's put a version of the uniforms on and let's get platform shoes and then let's get the right instruments. And then it got crazy out of control. And we had already done the Cold Sweat record. So this was in between me being Cold Sweat and Saigon Kick. And Jamie and Tommy had already left Black and Blue. And I think Tommy was involved with a couple other bands that he was producing. And Harlow was on Warner's. They did a record for Warner. So everyone was kind of in between, you know, their real job and the signed acts. Yeah, yeah. But it just got out of control so fast in a good way. Yeah, yeah. And it was a blast. But yeah, that's how that started.
Yeah, and you went on to be licensed by Kiss, didn't you, as the official tribute act?
They did, yeah. They were I mean, because there's always there's this mindset that no matter what you do, if it's involved with Kiss, Gene's going to sue you, which is not the case. And he loved Tommy and Jamie. He knew Anthony and I, but he really loved those two. And I think he did 2 records with Black and Blue, and they toured with them. And I mean, he adored them both, clearly enough to put Tommy in the band, right? Yeah, yeah, exactly. So, and a good choice, I might admit, I might add. But he and Paul just said, look, because they came to see us a couple times, and they offered us pointers. Hey, this part goes like this. Hey, you're singing that part too early. Hey, if you just try this. So they helped us with our quality control, which is really generous of them. Yeah. But they said, you know, Gene loves to say this thing where you have to be careful. The lawyers are going crazy, right? So just do what we ask you and everything will be fine. So we signed a letter that was basically a cease and desist if they said so letter.
Right.
And I think it's because we were using a copyrighted name and trademarked faces. I mean, now at this point in my career, totally get it. But they did it literally as a formality. It was never held over our heads. They never pulled the plug on us ever. They loved it, and they were totally cool about it.
Yeah, yeah. One thing I've always wondered about tribute acts is it fulfilling, or is there this need inside you to be doing your own music? You know, are you happy doing someone else's songs all the time?
I was, to a point. I mean, because I knew I'd moved out to LA to be in a band and make records. And this was more fun than I thought I'd ever have doing this sort of stuff, you know, on the side. But you're right. I mean, I remember sitting there with Jamie when I put on the makeup, and he just shook his head and he goes, "Why didn't we think of this?" It's like, fair enough. But it was a lot. It was so much work. It wasn't like, you know, playing in any other given tribute. Like if you're playing a UFO tribute band, probably pretty easy on the costuming and the, you know, that sort of stuff. No one's going to call you on it if you don't have the right guitar. But with Kiss, everybody knows that. They know what it's supposed to look like. They know what it's supposed to sound like. And we were doing it at a time when maybe 2 or 3 other bands were doing it. And like you said, we were the ones that were officially approved by them.
Yeah.
But again, Jamie called us the exhibit. He said, we're only going to do this for a certain amount of time. And when the exhibit is over, that's it. No more. So that's how I looked at it. And we were in a couple of magazines at the time, like Rip and another one. And I didn't give them by name because I didn't want to get the stigma from other people who were in real bands, as it were, to, well, he's in a tribute act. I'm like, well, not really. It was kind of, we didn't start it to do that. We started because it was fun. It wasn't, like you said, a burning desire for me to be Gene Simmons. No, it just, I happen to sound like him when I sing.
Yeah.
Don't look anything like him.
True, you don't.
No.
So what was Saigon Kick directly after it then? Was there a bit of a gap, a few other bands, or?
No, literally, I got the call. We were playing a gig in Orange County called Bananas.
Right.
And I got the call that their bass player had been fired and send in a package. A friend of mine who worked at Mercury told me that. So I remember going to that last gig and telling them, "Hey, I've got an audition next week. I'm flying out," because they knew who Saigon Kick was.
Yeah.
And they're like, cool, awesome. So yeah, literally that was the last one, and that would have been May or June of '92.
Yeah. That must have been some experience, though, you know, because they were hugely successful and just jumping in, and I imagine it just was hit the ground running, and that was it.
It was, and when I joined, there was, you know, the single hadn't done anything yet.
Oh, really?
So yeah, they were when I was meeting their manager about the audition, they were editing the video for those on the way. So it wasn't even out yet. So I joined a week later, and it was the single, but there was no way it was close. So this would have been June and July, and so it was, you know, being played on some radio stations, but not a lot. It wasn't crazy. I got congratulated later for my success and my business acumen for joining a band on the way up. I was like, they're my favorite band. I just wanted to join them. You know, I really did. They were my favorite band, and I got to join them.
Jeez, not something that happens to everybody.
No. And I've always valued that. And I think, that's kind of a parallel with Jason Newsted. I mean, he had joined his favorite band, you know, or actually. Tim Owens got to join his. You know, it's a crazy sense of gratitude. You're just like, okay, I'm getting to make records and tour again, but literally with the guys I wanted to be in a band with. This just doesn't happen, you know. Cinderella stuff.
Yeah, exactly. How long was it before the sense of awe wore off and you actually felt like, yeah, I'm a member of this band now?
I think we played an MTV appearance acoustically in October of that year of '92. And I remember thinking to myself, okay, I'm on MTV, we're live, you know, we're all going on. And it was their first time on there too, because they had done the first record and I'd done Cold Sweat. So we were kind of, until the Lizard, kind of the same. Yeah. Exposure wise. And I remember thinking to myself, walking out of that studio going, you know what? I feel like I'm one of the four now.
Yeah, yeah. And so jump forward to 1994 then. Panic Boom.
Yes.
What happened there between Saigon Kick and the start of Panic Boom?
That was during Panic Boom started. It was called Planet Boom originally, but Phil found out a couple of weeks ago that there's a band in Australia that's a Christian rock band called Planet Boom.
Right.
Yeah, I did the same eyebrow raise. Really? He said, "What do you want to do?" And I said, "Well, let's shoot around some other names." So I came up with Panic Boom because I thought it was like Panic Room or Planet Boom, put them together. You know, why not? And they liked it, so off we went. But that was during a hiatus where Saigon Kick had done a record. We were supposed to do another one. There was some internal struggling, shall we say. Right. Yeah. So we went out and Phil had started Planet Boom with another bass player. And then like things do, he just, the guy just wanted to do something else. Then Phil said, "Hey, you want to join in?" And I said, "Sure. What do you got?" And he played me the songs. I was like, "Yes, I would." So then I brought in a bunch of songs I had. And we just started getting ready to shop, and we did, and we took it to Atlantic, and they had passed. But then at that point, Saigon Kick was then all of a sudden freed from the gates and could go financially. So we went back and finished the Saigon Kick record. So Panic Boom sat there in dry dock with a full record of songs. Revolution being one of them, and I got asked the other night if Randy had changed the lyrics, just for the time, and nope, those are the same lyrics he wrote in '94, and so it's kind of interesting they still apply.
yeah, exactly. It's crazy to think that people are hearing a song that was wrote 25 years ago, and they're hearing it for the first time.
Yeah, because my fear was we would do it and we'd listen to stuff and go, that didn't age so well. Should we fix this? And that wasn't the case. There's been a couple of things we've updated them sound wise just because of, again, technology, and you play with a guitar rig and you go, that's kind of a cool sound. I'll use that instead. But the song structure and all that's damn near the same. Yeah. So that's the way, or that's what got me back into it. I was like, well, let's take a listen and see what we got. If it sounds dated, let's not do it. Because initially Phil is doing it. It's a documentary based on his career called 30 Years a Drummer. And Revolution was going to be on the soundtrack. So that was the first shot. Well, let's try it and see if we can even get it done. And we did, and we all liked it. And we thought, you know what? Let's finish them out. So Keep It to Myself would be the second one in that batch. But we have about 16. And our guitar player Sean said the other day, he's like, "Hey man, I got 2 more ideas." I'm like, hang on. But what's cool is where we've picked up on the new stuff, it sounds like the old stuff. So it's not like the band sounds like this. Like if you took ZZ Top and you listen to Trace Hombres and you listen to Recycler, you're like, whoa, 2 different bands. Yeah. So it's not that at all. It still kind of sounds, other than, like I said, the little technological things, it still kind of sounds, I should say, very much like us. Yeah.
And was there any stage during the 25 years that you came together and were like, let's do it now instead?
No, because Phil and I was doing TV and film, and Phil was in Skid Row and some other things. So we had, we were in touch, but the idea was like, well, if we did it, what would we do it for? Randy, I think at that point, the singer had completely quit the biz. Whoa. And when I found him on social media, he was riding bikes and being he worked for GoPro, so he would put a GoPro on his helmet and go out these crazy off-road biking things. And,
I've seen surfing. Some of his videos.
Yeah. I was like, okay, well, I know him, that makes sense. But he was like, no, I haven't sung in years or whatever. Yeah. I was like, really? All right. So when Phil said, let's try this again, I was like, well, we're not doing it without Bates. So if he hasn't sang, check in with him. And Bates came over the first time and sang, like, okay, sounds fine. Let's go. We're ready. Yeah. But yeah, everyone kept in touch, but went their own ways.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was
life took over.
Yeah. So it was the doing the song for the documentary that made you guys decide to get back together then.
Yeah. Yep. It was So effortless.
Yeah, it just felt
Literally
right.
just right there. Just no. I mean, part of that is Phil and I, because we played together so much. But Randy and I, when we first met and we started writing stuff, we would just sing. Not improv. We had an idea what we wanted to do, but he'd sing and I'd have the melody, or he'd have the melody, and I just kind of sing what I thought over the top of him, and we just kind of blend the voices. And we didn't even have to think about it. It just flew right along. So that picked right back up too. And that was the big selling point for me, because I really liked that. And I really liked writing with him, because it was just, I got an idea. Yeah, so do I. Back, forth. And it was so cool. And that has not stopped. Picked right back up.
That's good to hear. That is very good to hear. So I have to ask, what's it like trying to get a band off the road nowadays compared to back in the early 90s?
Back then you had the label behind you. So the label was subsidizing.
Yeah.
Now it would be most likely up to us. I mean, bands now, if you're a decent sized band, you can still get tour support, but mostly you're considered to be self-propelled. You're on your own financially. So I've been asked, if is this band going to tour? I was like, well, that'll be a matter of two things. One, COVID. Two, if we can feasibly make it work financially, because if you look at 5 guys who got to uproot their lives and let's say to do a month out on the road, so there's got to be at least a week's worth of rehearsal, figure at least. So where's that going to be? Everyone's got to be put up, and sheltered and fed and all that. So you got that. Then you head out on the road. So there's got to be a vehicle. So, and if you're smart, you're going to have a vehicle with a trailer, and you should have someone who is not in the band drive.
Yeah.
Schedule, or she is on a different schedule than the band, so they can rest. Because otherwise the band is going to have to do the show, get up early in the morning, and then 3 hours sleep, drive 7 hours. Probably not the best of ideas.
No, I wouldn't think so.
So those are the main considerations, because people say, oh, it'd be great to see a tour or whatever. And I agree. We also, at this point, we'd have one record. So the smart thing to do would be open for somebody or play festivals. So maybe that, I don't know, but we'll find out.
Yeah. One thing I imagine is hugely beneficial nowadays as well is social media. You can do nearly everything from your home instead of going out and playing clubs and getting a name that way for yourselves.
Yep. And we've also talked about getting together, let's say in Vegas, where Phil is, who's an amazingly competent video editor. He's just great at it. We've thought about doing a streaming event. We'll get a rehearsal hall, set up the gear, and stream it. That way we don't have to, other than getting to Vegas, we're not having to go to this city, that city, this. Just like you said, tune in via your favorite platform, and here we are.
Yeah, actually, that'd be epic. That's definitely something you guys should do.
Yeah, we did when I was Saigon Kick and Cold Sweat. I did the Monsters of Rock cruise, and Larry Moran, who runs that, did a streaming event with Roy Cathy, our singer in Cold Sweat, and a bunch of other guys. They put together a band and just ripped through a bunch of tunes, and they streamed it. Sounded great, looked great. I was like, you know what? That's feasible.
Yeah, exactly. So how has the reception been to your song Revolution?
Just amazing. The funny thing is, people will ask, did you guys just write about whatever's going on now or last couple weeks? No. So that's really cool. And the other thing is, people say it sounds current, just literally sonically it sounds current, which I think sometimes my generation of musicians get kind of stuck in a sound that sounds too much like the area you came from. Kind of like silent movies to talkies. You got to change it up, and you've got to be modern, even if your story's the same. So that's the reception we're getting the most, is that people think it sounds really cool and it's modern, and they want to hear more, which is really good. So they're like, okay, great, thanks guys, see ya. No, they want to hear more, which is really cool. And so funnily enough, we have more.
Brilliant. I was just going to ask, what's the next next stage for music?
Next stage is I have since I'm mixing it, I have the rest of the album to mix. So like I said, Keep It to Myself is done next, and then there's a song called probably Love Child will be after that. And when that's finished up, I have my own project, which is called Canal, which is it's all done, mixed, mastered, ready to go. It's behind the Panic Boom because Panic Boom just happened to be finished first. But so that's in the can waiting. And if I had to describe it, actually, it was described to me as Thin Lizzy meets Ghost.
Really?
Yeah, well, I'm a huge Thin Lizzy fan. So I had given myself the assignment as I'm going to write a record. And it's as if I wanted to sell the record to Thin Lizzy and say, you guys, if you wanted 10 songs you didn't have to write, but to sound like you, here they are. So I did that. And so that's next. And then I have a couple other things behind that too. So there's always something cooking.
Jeez, you've really piqued my interest now, because Ghost would be one of my favorite bands at the moment, and obviously being Irish, I feel like I have to like Thin Lizzy. You know, it's kind of like your national duty. But I remember I seen Ghost there just before the pandemic, and they actually played Whiskey in the Jar. Or no, the Boys Are Back in Town.
Did they?
Yeah, and they did a brilliant version of it. But geez, if there's something that sounds like two of them bands combined, I'm there.
Okay, cool. I'll be happy to comply. But yeah, and again, being Irish American, again, Phil Lynott, you know, and that band is, I think, genetically in my DNA. I have to acknowledge it. But it's we had done a Metallica band here, or sorry, Thin Lizzy band here called Trouble Boys to entertain ourselves, and we played Whiskey in the Jar. And of course, people are, it's cool, you guys played the Metallica song. I was like, no. But what the cool part is, because we were unapologetic, it was just like, we're going to play the cool songs we like, like Opium Trail and Killer on the Loose and Johnny. And I mean, so we picked some album tracks as well. And it was always fun to see the people who got it lose their mind in the audience, having done it with the Kiss thing. I'm not doing it with Lizzy. So I sang and played bass on that. But these two guys came up to us at one gig, and they had seen Thin Lizzy and Queen in Atlanta, Georgia, here in the States in 1977.
Yeah.
They're like, that was so awesome. Oh my God, you guys did this. I thought I'd never hear those songs again live. I was like, oh, perfect. Made my day.
Yeah, I could imagine. Jeez.
Have you heard any of the new Ghost?
I haven't heard it yet. I heard bits of it, but I'm planning on my next day off now, just to immerse myself in it. Yeah,
I've heard 3 songs and only part of that third song, but the 2 I've heard, Call Me a Little Sunshine and Hunter's Moon. I like both of them. They to me, I was kind of disappointed by the last record of theirs. It's like another instrumental, really? Can I have a song here, guys? So these 2 I've heard are just like, okay, cool. They're back on it. Love it.
Yeah.
Big fan.
Yeah. Have you had the chance to see them in concert or see them live?
I have not. I'm hoping to this year. Again, I think they had some dates hooked up before the COVID thing really hit. And for me, I'm in Charleston, South Carolina, so it's not a big spot for concerts, and it's a bit in the Bible Belt.
I see.
So not really. They'd probably get a little resistance here, but I have Jacksonville, I have Atlanta, I have Charlotte, so they're nearby, so I could go see them. So I definitely want to see them, because I like the fact that they put thought into the visual presentation. That matters to me. I mean, it's cool. That's what I liked about Rammstein. It's like, you got this heavy duty music, but there was such a visual about it. They thought about how they wanted things to look.
Yeah.
And that's because it's a show, and that's important.
Exactly. That's one of my top things when it comes to concerts. I love going to a show that the band, they're not just playing music, they're putting on like almost a theatrical performance,
Totally agree.
Yeah. It has to be all about the stage show. Even AC/DC, I seen them about 12, 13 years ago, and they put on one hell of a show. They had this big train crashing through the stage. And, it's the entertainment factor.
Yep. I remember seeing Maiden on the Peace of Mind tour, and So you had Eddie running around and all. I was like, right, good, something, I mean, they're Iron Maiden, so they're, boom, they're in your face, and that's great. But it's still, it matters to me to give you something to look at as well as something to hear, because you know what it sounds like when you get there. So if you have something that visually surprises you, that adds to it, and I think hooks you in.
Yeah, exactly. We'll move on to the last couple of questions. So
sure.
I ask everybody these, so I'm afraid you won't get off the podcast till you answer.
No problem. Bring 'em on.
So if you could see any musician or performer from history for one night only, who would it be?
Oh, from history. Oh, you bastard. I was going to say just pop and rock. Easy. That's really hard, because recently I've been listening to a lot of Mozart, specifically the Requiem. And I love that. So to be able to see him conduct that would have been just crazy. Yeah. But I'm going to have to subset this. Definitely the Beatles. But I would want to see them in the Cavern Club, I think. Yeah,
actually. That's one I haven't heard before. I've heard people say, the rooftop gig or Shea Stadium, but I've never actually heard someone say the Cavern Club. And that's almost like the perfect answer, because it's before they got too big. So you'd really get to hear what they were. Yep.
And they were just, you could tell, even when you see the movies, that there's something about them. So be able to watch that would be amazing. Yeah. And then I would have liked to have seen, obviously, Thin Lizzy or Queen in their heydays. Van Halen on the first tour, just because they changed everything after that tour. But I would have liked to have seen Elvis. Elvis on the back of a flatbed truck somewhere in the South in 1954. Yeah. Love to see that. I would love to have gone to the old, the big band stuff and just watch the crazinesses, like Glenn Miller or any of those guys were playing the gig and everyone's dancing and jumping around, and that again is an event. So I mean, it's a long list, but I'd say those are the ones that jump to the top of it. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's funny you mentioned Elvis. Actually, I have Elvis always has a special place in my heart. When I was like 12 or 13, I got incredibly obsessed with Elvis, and every week out of my pocket money I'd buy an Elvis CD or an Elvis record, and I think in the end I ended up having nearly every song he ever recorded. So to get the opportunity to see him in concert, oh my god, I think that would be the end. I wouldn't go to any other concerts after that. Yeah, I mean, he was simply amazing. If you get a chance, if you ever get to the States, definitely go to Graceland. Oh, it's on my bucket list. Good, yeah, because I've been there, and it's really cool to just think, wow, Elvis lived here and died here. Yeah, he did. But he's, I guess, in this day and age, a little bit overlooked, just because there's been so much since him, and you couldn't really appreciate like what he really did. But he was just absolutely a force, and there was nobody like him. The closest thing you get is Sinatra. Yeah, who had that teen bopper thing, and I would have liked to seen him too early on. That would have been pretty cool as well, actually. Yeah, because he was the first kind of people go just lose their mind over someone. I think Sinatra was the first. Yeah, and Elvis was the second one in the rock and roll biz. Yeah. So either of those two, but Elvis just I think he's also overlooked as a vocalist because he was just so cool and he moved so well. And the guy was just reeking charisma. It just came off him in waves. Yeah. But if you listen to him sing, he could really sing. He was really musical. Yeah. Especially later in his life, he was almost verging on operatic, Yep. Totally agree. Yeah. Yep. It'd be fun to sneak by that 68 comeback special too. Sit in the crowd for that. Yeah. Or to have a time machine, right? Exactly. Jeez, that'd be epic. The next one. So if you could be locked in a room for 24 hours with any performer from history, who would it be? Musical? Mm-hmm. Okay. I think that would probably be John Lennon. Good choice. Because he could play a couple instruments. Helpful. Funny. Yeah. Right. Smart. to the point, to be sure. And I think that after about that 24 hours, like, that'd be enough.
Yeah.
Probably, you know what? You'd probably get your fill.
Yeah.
Got him. Either that or he'd be good, or I mean, I'd say Ed Van Halen, but I spent a lot of time with him in the late 80s anyway, so that's kind of a cheat. But or Phil Lynott be interesting. But I would say John.
Yeah.
If you ask me tomorrow, you might get a different one, but John today.
Good choice. Very common choice as well. A lot of people, I feel a lot of musicians would pick him.
Yeah. Well, I think after the Get Back thing came out too, people got another glimpse of what his personality was like again. And, you know, because once I think Yoko walked into the picture, he just kind of divorced himself from the Beatles mentally, not completely. Yeah. So you didn't get a view of what his personality was like. I mean, you do early on with Help and Hard Day's Night and those press conferences they did. But if you see him and Get Back, he's such an interesting combination of clown and intellect.
Yeah. He is. I feel like he almost gets the short stick though. It's like Paul gets the name of the nice Beatle, and he's kind of, you know, depending on his mood, it could go either way. Yeah. You know.
Yep. And Lennon, I think also McCartney gets the justified title of musical guru. But if you listen to some of the offhand comments John makes during Get Back, where there's one that really stuck with me, where they're talking about a lyric in a song, and he goes, but that doesn't sing well, does it? So I was like, oh, that's a really good point. Yeah. It could be a cool phrase, it could be clever, but if it doesn't sing well, it's no good.
Yeah, exactly.
It just kind of sneaks that in. And my guess is that he did that more earlier in the career, but by that point he's kind of like, you know.
Yeah.
I'm done being the Beatle.
Yeah. And if there was a song that could appear on the soundtrack to your life, what would it be?
You cut out there. Song that's appear on the soundtrack to what?
If there was a song that could appear on the soundtrack to your life, what would it be?
I would say Beatles and This Bird Can Sing.
Cool. Very good choice again.
Revolver is my favorite Beatles record. So it's the I noticed now recently in the last 5 years, it's kind of now battles Sgt. Pepper as the favorite for most people. Yeah, but that's my favorite Beatles record by far. Love it. Just love it.
And finally, this is a new one I'm throwing into the mix. Is there a question I should have asked you?
Question you should have asked me. What do I do when I'm not doing music?
Okay.
Nothing. No. Kidding. I have an interest in old Chevy trucks. So I have a 1964 Chevy C10 truck that I had restored and kind of beefed up, which I'll be happy to send you a picture of.
Do.
So it's got an old, Detroit V8. I mean,
oh, beautiful.
Oh yeah. I surf.
Right.
I love to surf. I have a nonprofit where you can see them all in the background. Those are guitars that are going to be donated. That's what I get them. I find them kind of like in states of disarray, and then, they need some love. So I give them some love, get them functional, put them back together, and then get them to a new home.
Oh, brilliant.
So
there's some beauties back there as well.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh man.
So, but yeah, I love putting guitars together. I just, the reason is, when I was 16 or 17, I saw, this one on the cover of a record.
Yeah.
And I went, what? How can you do that? I didn't know you could order parts and put your guitar together. I was like, I can. And it's fairly inexpensive and it'll sound great. Oh, what is this magic? So that got me through college too. I made my own guitars because Les Pauls were and still are expensive.
Yeah, they are.
And if you dropped them, you're in trouble. Whereas if you got something you dropped and you put Schwinn bike paint on it, hey, you just gotta get another one, spray some paint on top of it and fix it. It's fine.
Yeah.
So I like putting these things back together, and some of these really needed some love, but they're now pretty much all playable. And I get them in, and I was also fascinated and grateful to see how many people were willing to contribute. So, hey, I got this guitar. It's been under my bed, but it's missing 3 tuning pegs. It doesn't have a pickup that works. I got it. Just hand it to me, and I'll find it a new home. I'll fix it up and get it to a new home. So it's called Changing Strings. That's the name of it.
Brilliant. I have to ask, since you mentioned guitars, then what's your all-time favorite guitar?
The guitar itself? A Fender Stratocaster.
Really? The old reliable?
Yeah, it can do anything, and it looks cool. And again, it's modular, so if you break something on it, you just switch it out.
Yeah.
And that's just it's like why I got a Chevy truck. Is my brother bought a Dodge and he restored that. I got the Chevy because Chevy parts you can find anywhere.
Even now.
Yeah, oh yeah. I mean, they make millions of those trucks, and they didn't change any of the engine or the suspension or the axle. None of that. It's a truck. Why do we need to fancy it up? So with my brother's Dodge, those just weren't as popular. They were obviously they made them, but he couldn't. He spent 4 months trying to find a gas tank for it.
Oh man!
Whereas with me, like I pop on the net or get a hold of, hey, you got this part of that part? Yeah, sure. When do you want it?
I have an obsession with American motors, especially from the 60s, 70s, and 80s, because we don't get them over here at all.
Oh.
You've surely seen European cars; they're so boring. But like you guys over there seem to have the nicest, sexiest cars that have ever been made, like the Charger, the Camaro, the Mustang.
Oh, the Dodge Charger, yeah. Greg Chason, the bass player in Badlands, had a Super B.
That
was that thing was just so much fun to ride around in. I mean, just definition of muscle car, just unreal. My brother, who collects more cars than I do, he had for a while. I don't know if he still got a '65 Mustang.
Oh man.
So that was cool, and it didn't have, of course, it didn't have shoulder belts. It had regular seatbelt.
Yeah.
And so my nephew gets in and he wants to drive it. He's like, "Where's the seatbelt?" It's like, "Lap belt." He's like, "Huh?" It's like, "Well, how do I start this? What is that?" I said, "He's like, the engine won't start." I said, "You just flooded it." "What does that mean?" He's like, "Uh-huh." So, and my Chevy, it's a 3 on the tree, right? So. Someone will ask to quote borrow it, or hey, can I drive your truck? Sure. And they sit in and go, where? How do you shift? It's on the here. Well, What do you mean? It's 3 on the tree. What does that mean? You still want to drive it? No, that's okay. Can I just take a ride in it with you? Yeah.
Oh man. Well, your song Revolution is going to play us out this evening. Do you want to tell us a bit about it before you go?
As we fire it up, it's I wanted to hear the contrast in the delivery of the lyrics, so that's why the dynamics are up and down and up and down and up and down, and that middle section where Randy and I are just kind of almost in your ear. All of that is very intentional. So Bates, I think, really he made it clear again that. Whatever you're revolting against, you probably got something, and there's probably someone who's with you to do it. Most likely, especially these days.
Yeah. Brilliant. Well, listen, thanks for coming on. I really enjoyed the last hour.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for having me. Look forward. Hopefully, we can do this again.
Yes, I'd love it. Even if it was just to talk about cars and guitars.
We'll talk about cars. I'll get this downstairs, and I'll get the Chevy out. And I had Jason Beeler, and I did this to Phil too. I was starting up because it's the winter here. Well, for here it's winter time, but it gets cold, so I'll just run it. Just make sure everything, the fluids are going. Whatever. I said, all right, you ready for this? Sound of a V8 coming at you, and I hit. You'll hear them on the other end. I go, good Lord, what is that thing? It's like, that's V8. Is what that is. Detroit muscle car, buddy. Because I think what happened is that truck came with an original straight 6. So the person I got it from put a V8 in it, 350. Jeez. 3. What did he put in it? 3 something. And the engine block number, the code says it's from Flint. So Flint tells me it could be a Camaro engine, it could be an El Camino engine, or it could be a Corvette engine.
Oh.
Of course, one buddy's like, "Oh, it's got to be a Corvette engine." I'm like, "Well, maybe," but 327, and it just roars. So I was out. I'll leave you with this story. I was out with my son, and I had a Jeep at the time, and I said, "Okay, we're gonna have a lesson in torque." He's like, "Okay, what does that mean?" I said, "We're in the Jeep. We're going, 40 miles an hour." I said, "Watch, I'm gonna punch it." So I punch it, and we kind of go, and I let off the guy. Said, "Okay, cool." Next day, we're out in the truck. I said, "Okay, same spot in the road, whatever. We're gonna, have a lesson in torque." Punch it, and we go, and stop. Whoa, what was that? I said, "That was Detroit," is what that was. Horsepower is how fast you hit the wall. Torque is how far you go through the wall. So
that's a good way of putting it.
Cool. Yes, it is.
Welcome to the podcast, Conscience That Made Us. Interviews and stories, tales from the bus. We love taking you back to when it all went down. The greatest live shows and that cheering crowd sound. It's concerts that